Photography has improved greatly since the first photograph was taken, and much has improved within the technology and the skills required to be able to take amazing photographs like these. With many more settings being used on cameras, these settings can now allow the photographer full, part or no control over the expected outcome of their shot. Starting from the camera Oscuro to the more recent DSLR camera, almost everything has changed in the technology for taking photographs. Camera Oscuros are the originally used for artist paintings, were the first step into creating a camera that could take photographs. Camera Oscuros are believed to have been used for thousands of years before the first photograph was taken, almost 200 years ago in 1827. This is the photograph taken by Joseph Nicephore Niépce and was the first major step into photography. Cameras started out as SLR cameras. SLR stands for single lens reflex, meaning that what you see through the viewfinder or LCD screen will be the same as what is developed onto the film. SLR cameras use mirrors between the lens and film to allow the image to be seen throughout the viewfinder or the LCD screen, before allowing the light to hit the film. Light travels through the lens of the SLR camera. It then reaches a mirror that is tilted at a 45-degree angle. The light is then reflected off the mirror and into a prism, where the light reflects around and off the prism and through the viewfinder. Then, when the shutter is pressed, the mirror goes up, allowing for the light to go directly through the lens and onto the film. Developing from the SLR camera is the DSLR camera. DSLR stands for Digital Single Lens Reflex. The main difference between the SLR camera and the DSLR camera is that the DSLR is digital and therefore doesn't have a film roll. Instead, the film roll is replaced with a CMOS sensor to be able to capture the actual image in a pixel format where the light hits it after the shutter is pressed. Currently, one of the most famous photographers is Annie Leibovitz. Her work is well recognised globally due to the unique lighting and consistency in style. As photography has been around for almost 200 years, there were obviously many other important photographers before her. This includes Margaret Buquet White, who was one of the early women photographers for Life magazine and was best known for her fearless and crazy photography style, and Robert Capa, who photographed 5 wars from the Spanish Civil War to World War II. Undoubtedly though, the most important person in photography is Joseph Nicephore Niépce, who was the first person to take a photograph. He took the photograph using a camera of his own making, so without his invention, photography would not be the same today. Over the development of cameras, settings have been one of the biggest advances, with many settings being added to the camera to allow the photographer to have more control over the camera and the photograph. There are many different settings on the camera, but most are categorised into automatic or manual settings. Manual settings allow the photographer to have part or full control over each setting, including the ISO, shutter speed, aperture and focus. To use manual settings, you move the dial to M for full control over everything, or S, P or A for part control over certain settings. For focus, you switch to MF or M on the lens for manual focus. Automatic settings, on the other hand, don't allow the photographer as much control. The settings are already functioned into the camera. The camera adjusts the ISO, shutter speed and aperture using settings to fit the lighting. It will also adjust the focus by having the lens switch to AF. It will focus on the subject in the centre of the composition, which you then can move by half holding down the shutter. The preset settings can allow the photographer to choose what type of photograph they are taking and choose a setting with similar theme, such as sport, portrait or landscape. When choosing automatic settings, it is important for the photographer to choose the setting best related to the type of photograph they are taking. For example, if they were taking a landscape photograph, you would use a landscape setting rather than the portrait setting. This is a photograph taken with the landscape setting. This is a photograph taken with the portrait setting. Manual settings allow for much more control over the photograph, but it is important to know what each setting does. The camera I am using is a Nikon DSLR. The easiest setting to start with is focus. Focus allows you to change the depth of field in a photograph. To do this, you need to set the lens to MF or M, and then by turning this part at the front of the lens, the depth of field will change. The next setting I will change is the ISO. Having the camera set to manual, I then use the screen on the back of the camera to change the ISO, like this. The ISO changes how sensitive the sensor or film is to the light. The higher the ISO, the more sensitive it is to light. Next I am changing the aperture. The aperture controls how much light enters through the lens of the camera. This is changed on the back of the camera like this. The final setting that needs changing is the shutter speed. The shutter speed determines how long the light will enter the camera. This is how to change the shutter speed. This is the landscape photograph I took with the automatic settings, and this is the similar shot taken using the manual settings.
Photography is a hobby that interests me a lot. I love being able to take photographs and keep those memories with me forever. Personally, I prefer landscape photography as there is a large range of options to take, and I can change a lot about the photograph using the manual settings to create a unique look. I feel that manual settings allow me more control over the lighting and outcome of the photograph so that it is unique, and I can start to create my own style this way by having similar lighting effects across all my photography work.
Improved dramatically since the first photograph, and the settings now available have helped with the improvement of this technology. Many photographers around the world are now given the chance to be able to have more control over their photographs, and people learning about photography are now given more options to learn how to take photographs with the automatic settings.